This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook.
Though we spent so much of our time at Uncle Vanta's camp, on most days we also went to the main one because Uncle Vanta frequently had work to do there, people or animals with injuries or illnesses. I loved those times, especially when we stayed long into the evening and partook of traditional Romani zumin, which is a sort of stew or thick soup. After we had eaten, tales would be told round the fire, and we would all crowd in and warm ourselves at the prospect of ghosts or ghouls creeping up behind us. Then the fiddles would come out, and we would sing and dance. Round about midnight, we would make our way the 5 miles back to Vanta's camp, because he did not like to be away too long, so we rarely slept over in the main camp, but with our way lighted by the moon and the stars, I got to know the paths to Vanta's and other tracks so well that I hardly needed light. On those evenings, my very favorite thing was the traditional gypsy dancing. There was one small girl called Rupi whose dancing was astonishing. I suppose she was perhaps 10 or 11 years old, younger than me anyway, when I first met her, and sometimes I dreamed that one day, when she and I both grew up, we would marry. I would have liked that. We were kindred spirits, she and I, and though I now love Zuzi to my very soul, that love came from the need to protect each other from evil, whilst Rupi's was the love of joy and freedom. Oh, those dances, if only you could have seen them. When she went with the men musicians into town, with me accompanying Uncle Vanta, she would twirl and twist with her plaits spinning round her so she looked like a Catherine wheel, and the people would throw coins to her which her little sister picked up into an old bird's nest. Well, so it looked, though it was actually a homemade rough basket, because there were no spare hats. But beside our fire in the evening, her dancing was altogether different, for it was proper gypsy dancing just for us, and we understood its meaning even when done by a 10-year-old. Sometimes she was a flower in the breeze, her plaits out, her wild hair flowing round her face almost like a gauze mask, and you could smell the sun and the pollen and imagine the seeds blowing from plants. Another dance, she was a young filly, tied by a rope and desperate to escape, her head tugging and receding, her legs pushing the earth to try to snap the rope. Another was as a young deer in the forest, first grazing, ever watchful, twisting and turning, ever looking for enemies, and at the sight of one, leaping and bounding. Or she was just a little gypsy girl, cavorting, jumping and twirling for the sheer joy of being alive. One she called Leaves in the Wind, and she really did make herself look like an armful of leaves, twisting and turning and blowing and landing. To tease me, now and then she would do a special dance for me which she called Prefakani Foxy. That dance was different from all the others, or so I thought, because it was my special one. Without moving from her place standing in front, she would appear to be walking stealthily sometimes, and with brisk steps at others, or with a trot, whilst her head always sought for smells of food or danger, moving round almost back to front, up and down, to each side. Then she would give a sudden leap in the air, a fox after a butterfly, and twist round and round as a fox chasing its own tail. Oh, how that little girl could dance, oh how I miss her, and weep for little Rupi. Her full nickname meant Silver Feet, but Rupi said it all. Her little sister's full name, the girl who collected the money, meant a pretty flower, but it was always abbreviated to Rakani, or, more usually, Rake. I was so happy, it felt like heaven. Then the grey wolves came, and they devoured Silverfeet, and Pretty Flower, and Petal, and Lassie, and all my friends, and all my relatives, and even Granny who I'd thought was indestructible, and me, in a sense. I'm sorry, I can't help the tears. Can we pause a moment?
This was brought to you by the Storyteller on YouTube and Facebook. Listen to our podcast on any of these platforms: Anchor, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, RadioPublic, Spotify, support us on Patreon, and check us out on Discord. All the links can be found in the video description below. We thank you for your participation. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. We love feedback.